This is a digital altimeter. Its number one function is to tell me my relative height above the ground that we just took off from. Now, this is not the type of altimeter that a pilot uses. This is actually the type of altimeter that a skydiver uses. The reason I'm showing you this digital altimeter is because I want you to understand who I am, where I come from, and how I became a content creator. If you scroll way back on my Instagram, you'll actually start to see a lot of skydiving photos and video of me taking first-time skydivers, strapping them to myself, and actually jumping out of the airplane with them. Fun fact for you, I actually have about 5,000 skydives. Now, if I turn this on, I'll actually be able to tell you exactly how many skydives I have. Okay, it's on, into my logbook. Okay, I have 4,933 skydives. A lot of those were in Seattle, Washington, and then the rest of them were all in Guam, a little remote island that is actually a US territory. Now that leads me to where I am today. I actually met my girlfriend while skydiving in Guam, and then eventually I made the big jump to live here in Taiwan with her. Now there's no skydiving here in Taiwan, and the reason I'm talking about all of this is because I had to figure out how to do something, and eventually I made the jump into being a content creator. I want you to understand that I know exactly what it feels like firsthand to be in the beginner's seat as a content creator. There's definitely a daunting feeling when you go to actually push record for the first time on your video and you realize, oh crap, there's so many things that I don't know what I'm doing. It can be intimidating and actually very scary for some people because one of the number one fears in the world is the fear of public speaking. These are the things that if I could go back in time and talk to that younger version of me just a couple years ago and tell him, hey, these are the things that you should really focus on. All these other things, don't worry about that. That will come later. Just focus on these for now. And number one on that list is shooting with the edit in mind. Shooting with the edit in mind is my number one tip because it's gonna save you the most time and the most stress in the long run. Here are some questions and things that I'm always thinking about before I go out and push record. Is this content going on Instagram, vertical video, or YouTube, horizontal video? Who is my target audience? Who are the people who are gonna be watching this and connecting with this content? You should have a clear idea of who you're trying to reach with your videos because that's really gonna help you attract your audience and convert those views into followers. Another thing that I think about is, can I edit on location? Now, if I'm filming with my camera, that's a little bit tricky because I'm gonna have to take the SD card out, put it into my computer, open up the software, and then start editing with this complicated software. But if I'm shooting with my smartphone, I can just open the video up in my software on my phone, super easy. I use CapCut, by the way, and I'm just able to quickly edit that video right there on my smartphone, and I can see, okay, is this video gonna work? Is the transition gonna work? Do I have everything lined up? I can get a very good rough draft of the video edit before I go home and actually edit the video on my computer. Shooting with the edit in mind is also going to develop your eye. And what I mean by this is when you first start filming yourself, you kind of have a disconnect between filming and editing. Well, eventually you get your reps in and you've done it so many times. You filmed and edited and posted and filmed and edited and posted. You're able to kind of see the video before you actually go home and edit the video. I would say for me, I think I started developing that eye maybe around 100 Instagram Reels is when I really started to be able to see this is looking good, this is really gonna work. Now in this stage, when I'm preparing the video, I'm actually writing a script, writing down a shot list, things that I think that will look good for this video. And then I'm also going through and checking my gear list, making sure I have the camera, I have the lens, I have the microphone, I have everything that I need for that day or for that shoot. This is really gonna save you a lot of time and stress. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a shoot and I forgot a certain lens, battery, or a charger, or a microphone, or a light. Going through a checklist the day before or the night before and just making sure that you got everything packed is really gonna save you a lot of time. A prepared shoot is a very easy shoot to film and edit. An unprepared shoot is kind of a nightmare to film and definitely a nightmare to edit. I've been there and done that. You don't want to do it. Now, this brings me to my second point, which is to actively use social media as an inspirational tool. A lot of people nowadays will get on social media and they just end up doom scrolling or sending memes back and forth with each other, and that's totally fine. It's social media. You can spend your time however you want. But for me, I will actually actively look for content creators and content that catch my eye and catch my ear, or a combination of the both. And I will even go as far as to ask them questions, specific questions about their content, and you'd be surprised how willing creators are to give you tips and tricks just by asking some basic questions. Don't outright copy those creators, but you can take their ideas and put your own spin on it. So what I'll do when I see a reel that I really like is I will send it to myself. I have a second Instagram account that's set to private, and I literally have hundreds of reels saved in that message thread that I can just go back at any time and find those, and I'll even leave little notes underneath the reel so that I can quickly scroll back and find those reels and say, oh, this is going to be great for my upcoming trip in Mexico, which I'm actually going to Mexico, and I'm using social media to send reels back and forth with the bride and the groom to confirm, oh, they like this style, they don't like that style, and that will help me confirm what gear I need to bring along with me on this trip. Okay, moving on. I can still remember the first time that I came to work at the skydive business. Now, I actually didn't get hired as a skydiver. I got hired as a parachute packer. And the day that I walked into that business, I met Chris. Chris is an expert parachute rigger. He knows everything there is to know about parachutes, their systems, the materials. He knows everything. The point being is that when I walked into that business that day for my training, he was able to take me from somebody who knew zero, and in 2 weeks, I was able to work on the job packing parachutes, saving people's lives. And I actually worked full-time doing this every single day, which brings me to my next point, mentorship. Even if you have to pay for it, I think it's worth it because there are people out there who know so much about all of this content creation world. I've been really lucky to have a couple friends actually help me out in this area. They actually steered me clear of a lot of things that I would have been wasting my time doing, just like I'm trying to do for you now. One thing that I had a really hard time getting over, which my mentor actually helped me with, was imposter syndrome. Because I had just done the big career switch into being a content creator, I felt so insecure because I didn't feel like I really knew what I was talking about, but I was really quickly getting sponsorships from like lighting companies, and I just didn't feel like an expert yet. But my mentor really assured me that this is okay, you're gonna get over it, you're gonna get better, just keep going, keep getting your at-bats, you will get better. Hold on, I think there's something on the lens. Let me wipe that off real quick. All right, that's better. And this brings me to my fourth point, which is to connect with your audience. Just remember that it's a two-way street and you're in it together with these people. The foundation of social media is actually connecting with people. You know, you might have 100 followers. It's pretty easy to overlook and dream of those days that you have that 1,000 followers or 10,000 or, you know, 1 million or beyond. It's easy to overlook that you have 100 followers. And if you're able to serve those people that you have now, you're definitely going to be able to serve that larger audience down the road. And when people ask me about this in person, I always bring up this one question. And I ask them, can you imagine having 100 people in your house right now? Like 100 people in this studio would be crazy. Just keep that in mind as you're growing your social media. The follower count is important, but the trust and the relationship that you have with those followers is way more important. Especially now that I work with brands, they're actually more interested to hear what my relationship is like with this audience. So here are a couple things that I try to do to connect with that audience and stay active building that relationship. I always try my best to respond to the comments and messages on my social media. Even if there's a language barrier, I will use Google Translate or even some friends here who actually speak Chinese, and I'll ask them, hey, you know, what's this person asking? Or what are they getting at? Another way for you to connect with your audience is actually asking questions and starting conversations with those people in those comments, in those direct messages, or you can post those questions, for example, on Instagram, you can post them on a story, or here on YouTube, I can ask you questions like, hey, are these points helping you out? If they are, leave me a comment down below. I really hope that you're getting some value from this. And this last point is actually a new one for me, and I'm trying my best to do it, but it's actually pretty hard. So when somebody follows me, I will actually send them a direct message and say something like this. Hey Kim, thanks for following me. I would love to help you out. If you have any questions, let me know. I help people with photo, video, and content creation. They'll like the message or they'll even start responding and we can start a conversation from there. Just remember that it's social media and it's okay to be social. Now, if you want to become a successful content creator, no matter what, you are going to have to learn some marketing and advertising skills. Hold on, let me get my camera set up right here real quick. Okay, because if it drops, that's 12 stories down, and I don't want to drop my camera. Now, we all hate advertising. There's a reason why we hit the YouTube skip button as soon as it's available. And that brings me to my next point, which is storytelling or advertising, beginning, middle, and end. If we keep this in mind that people don't like advertising, that means the amount of time that we have to grab their attention, deliver some content, and get a call to action in there is very, very short. So here's my template that I try to stick to when I'm creating an advertisement. I want to have a strong, quick hook. I want people to know who it is and what it is within the first 2 to 5 seconds. After this, we're actually getting into the content of the video. This is actually the information that you want to convey to the audience. With short form content, I would say you have anywhere between 5 to 15 seconds to deliver this message. After this comes the call to action. Now, you don't want to spend all your time crafting this ad, creating a good hook, delivering the content, and then not telling the people what to do. Because if you've gotten their attention and they are interested in you or your product, then you want want to give them a reasonable call to action for them to follow up with you. Nowadays, there's many ways that you can create a call to action. My favorite one now is using ManyChat for people to comment on my Instagram Reels, and then I'm able to send them a link that gives them more information for whatever product I'm talking about. Now, with that short attention span, you do have to keep in mind that things need to move quick. So if you have a lot of information to deliver, maybe you should consider creating multiple videos or one great attention grabbing ad to funnel people into a longer form content so that you can deliver all of that information. All right, moving on. Okay, let's quickly talk about this next topic and then we will get to the fun stuff. At least for me, let's get to the fun stuff, which is talking about gear. Now, this next point, I actually am taking an analogy from Think Media and Sean Connell. What I heard from him was that if you try to chase two rabbits, you will end up catching none. Now, for me, I actually ran into this with my channel because I have kind of two different types of content that I make. Tech review and tech content geared around technology like cameras, microphones, lighting equipment, and how to use that. And then I have my girlfriend's couple silly content that you might see on my Instagram if you follow me over there on Instagram. Here's my handle, as well as some tech review stuff there too. And that's where I was experiencing the chasing two rabbits and catching none, except for I was able to catch some on both sides. But I would have probably been better off if I just stuck with tech review or if I just stuck with the girlfriend silly content stuff. But in the beginning, I think it's okay to jump around a little bit and try out some different styles of content that you might like. And then later down the road, once you figure out what you like, that's when it's time to stick with your lane, stay on brand. And even if you get, for example, a brand approaching you, if they're not within your topic or they're not on brand for your channel, then it doesn't really make sense to partner with that brand. Now, however, here's this other brand over here and they are totally on topic and they are exactly what you want. That's when you want to partner with that brand. That's when you want to get the sponsorships and do all of that stuff. And then I know it sounds cliche, but if you really are having a struggle, if you're really having a hard time with this, just follow your heart. You know what's right. Listen to yourself. And then outside of that, listen to the people that you respect. Maybe it's another creator or maybe a mentor like we talked about earlier. Listen to people who have success in that area. They're going to be able to steer you in the right direction. Okay, let's talk about gear. I think gear is extremely overrated and extremely underrated. There are two feelings when it comes to gear for beginner content creators. You're either feeling like me where you're like, oh my God, adult Legos, this is the best. My microphones and lights and all this stuff, I love it. And then there's the person who's feeling like, I don't really care about the gear, I just want it to work. And they might feel frustrated or flustered when they buy an expensive camera or, try to use their audio and it sounds bad and they just want things to work and they feel like, oh my God, I don't know how to use this. This is so frustrating. I think for the people who are feeling overwhelmed about gear should just stick with a smartphone. You've got decent video quality, you've got decent audio, literally right in your pocket. It's always with you. I think you should use what you have, and most of us have a smartphone. Now, if you do want to invest into gear, the number one upgrade that I recommend for you is audio. You can buy a wireless microphone and pair it with your smartphone, and that is the best bang for buck upgrade that you can get with your gear investments. Now, I know you see a lot of lights and I've got a lot of microphones and I know how to use them all, but you don't have to be an expert in order to get that best bang for buck. I just did a review on the Hollyland Lark M2, which is a great microphone for beginner creators. I also have the DJI Mark 1 version. I also have a professional Sony UHF microphone system. I have boom mics. I have all this audio equipment because I think that audio is so important for your video if you're speaking to your audience. I think it's the most underrated piece of gear that you can buy, but it's the biggest bang for buck. Now, for example, I can buy a light, but it's really only going to look good in certain situations. I can buy a camera with a nice lens, but it doesn't really look good unless I really know how to control it. I can buy a microphone. Now, same thing goes with the microphone. If I don't know how to use it, it's not going to sound great. It's probably the easiest thing to learn how to use, and you're going to be able to really be able to talk and connect with your audience much more by having a nice quality audio on your video rather than trying to get a nice video with bad audio. Does that make sense? Now, when it comes to lighting, I do believe in lighting. I'm sponsored by a lighting company. You can see the lights that I'm using. Obviously, I love lights and I've invested into lights. I think it's good to invest into lights also, but if you don't have the money and you don't want to dive into it, your best friend is going to be windows. You can use little suction cup mounts like this. This is a little mount from PGY Tech. I really like this brand. Now this one, you could put a smartphone adapter on the top of this, suction cup this onto the window, and the windows are generally nice and big light sources in the daytime. You can get beautiful light coming in onto you, and it's free. It's literally every single day. Even if it's overcast, you're going to be able to get some nice light into your scene, which is going to make your video look great. Now combine that with decent audio and a good idea, and you're off to the races. Now, speaking of this suction cup, there are a variety of ways that you can mount your camera. You can use tripods, you can use suction cups onto a window, you can use little grip arms. I actually have 3 or 4 grip arms in this scene right now, holding my lights. I have a little mini tripod for my camera. I think this is also a very underrated piece of equipment. I would personally, if I had to choose, a certain amount of budget, and I wasn't able to get a nice camera with a decent tripod and a microphone, if I had to like pick the things, I would probably pick a smartphone with the microphone and tons of rigging equipment, because then I would be able to put my camera into all these different interesting angles. And I think a lot of people have no idea what rigging equipment is. This is a piece of rigging equipment. Now, this is a little mini magic arm. Like I said, the cool thing about this one is that I can loosen this up, and I can change the bottom. Here, it's gonna take a second. And I can pull this guy out, and now I can put this, which is a hot or cold shoe adapter. You can see this is the cold piece that would go into my hot shoe or into a cold shoe, which is a little piece that would be on your camera or on your camera cage or on your tripod. And then so this guy can just go whoop, right into there. And now I've got this little magic arm that I can use to mount a light, or I could put a microphone on here, or I could put a smartphone on here and connect it somewhere. I would rather have a smartphone with a good microphone and tons of rigging equipment over, having the nicest camera without a microphone or the nicest camera without rigging equipment. It's so easy to get hung up on gear. Just find something that works for you, even if you don't have a wireless mic. Honestly, the microphones on smartphones aren't that bad. As long as you're pretty close to the smartphone, you're gonna have usable audio. It's not gonna be great. It's not gonna sound like this, but it is gonna be usable. And what's more important is the story, that beginning, middle, end. Doesn't matter if you're advertising or if you're just entertaining or vlogging, whatever you're doing, with a decent quality audio, you're gonna have a good start with just that. Another piece of equipment that people don't really think about, it's a bag. Getting a decent bag is really gonna help you, because when it comes to the day that you're shooting and you're deciding, okay, I'm gonna put everything inside this bag, and now you don't have enough space to say, bring that little suction cup mount, and then you get to the spot that you wanna film, that suction cup mount really comes in clutch if you don't have lighting and you're going to use the window. You're going to be able to put your smartphone up on the window, get that beautiful light. Whereas if you don't have that, you might have to rely on a tripod, or you just might not be able to get the shot based off of a cheap little crossbody bag, when you could have a backpack, a real backpack, and you could stay nice and organized, have extra gear inside there. I'm always a fan of bringing extra gear. You could ask my friends, I'm always bringing way too much gear. They're like, dude, you're crazy. This is way too much. But then I end up getting the shot. And that's one of the big reasons why, is because I have the bag, I have the extra rigging equipment. I always have more than enough stuff. And that's how I'm able to get the shot, because I lean so heavy on the equipment. Now, I know that's like literally the opposite of what I'm telling you right now, is just keep it simple, but it does really come in handy for you to be able to have a decent setup, and it will help you get the shot down the road. Obviously, I could talk about this for a long time. I'm a total gearhead. I have lots of equipment, but I do think that sometimes I'm leaning on it too heavily and forgetting that the story is much more important. All right, let's move on to the next point, which is actually building your nest. And right now, I'm in my current nest. This is my nest. This is where I feel comfortable talking to the camera. I have my great lighting set up. I know that I look good. I know that I sound good. Like I talked about at the very beginning of this video, when you first go and push record on your first couple videos, there's a big insecurity feeling of just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. Does it look good? Does it sound good? And it takes a while for you to feel comfortable and confident on the camera and talking to your microphones. So I think if you build your nest at home, you will get those reps in at home, and there's not going to be anybody sitting around watching you. For example, if you were to just go out into the world and start vlogging, those first couple times you're going to be a little uncomfortable. There's going to be lots of people staring at you. You're going to probably fumble your words. At least I would, and I have. You will feel comfortable here at your home alone, or with a friend, or maybe your partner, and it's just the two of you talking to the camera. You're going to start feeling comfortable and confident, and then eventually you're going to start leaving the nest. And the skills and the habits that you've built in this nest right here are going to transfer out into the outside world, and you're going to know exactly what you're doing. You've done this a couple times. You feel much more comfortable after you've built your nest here and then get out into the world. And my last point for this video is to under-promise and over-deliver. It doesn't matter what your channel is about. You will start growing an audience. You will start growing and getting some attention from brands. So when you do start working with those brands, this is where you should under promise and over deliver. You guys negotiate a deal. Most people are just going to do the bare minimum. So for example, if the deal was 6 reels for X amount of dollars, and you go out and you make those reels and you come back and you just do the 6, that's what most people would do. I think that you should go the extra mile, do those 6 reels, do supportive stories, do some behind the scenes, maybe even do an extra reel. Just go the extra mile. It will pay off in the end. I am proof. I am now working with brands who are paying me much more than I thought that I would ever be able to do with this. And this is all a concept that I learned from my father, and he always taught me to under promise and over deliver. People will follow you for 2 reasons. Either you've got a great personality and they just like to hang out and watch what you're doing, or you're adding value, or a combination of the 2. So if you can spark a little personality and also add value, you're going to be creating great videos and people are going to want to stick around and watch your content. All right, that's it for this video. Now let me know in the comments down below which one of these points resonated with you the most. Which one was the point that you needed to hear? I actually wrote these in order from most important to least important. I think the first couple points are the ones that you should really focus on if you're a beginner content creator. All right, that's it for me. I'll see you in the next video.